Uh, okay, here we are. I am incredibly late. I don't care. It certainly is my holy shit. It certainly is my fault. Literally nothing else to blame. But I am here. Uh, I guess at the very least, I didn't let procrastination win in terms of not even streaming. So here we are. That's already a win in my dictionary. So, anyways, here we are. I wanted to say before anything else, based on that theory of wow, when you say something out loud, you have more of a tendency to commit to your word if you're capable of valuing it properly, because you realize that there is a necessity to show that what you say indeed has any kind of value, because you say that it supposedly has some type of value. So, I wanted to say, I will try to make some kind of video. I have like two ideas set up already, and I didn't even try to make anything with them. So I will see. I will make something with that. The best thing isn't that I don't even have an idea itself. I said it. I already have something planned. I have something in my mind, and I didn't do anything about it because procrastination. Yeah. Anyways, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you. I can end stream now. No. Uh, Basically, it's just that. I guess I noticed that I have already two different ideas that I need to put into a video. I not as always, not that there is any explicit need, but rather that I see it as a necessity in order to accomplish any kind of valuable thing in terms of being capable, once again, of committing to what one says, firstly, and secondly, obviously, because it is quite useful to, yeah, to do what seems to be, in any kind of way, interesting, in terms of even more, because when I am making something of that nature, I am literally just hearing myself thinking. Here I always have the excuse, let's say, the possibility of being distracted with whatever that happens outside of myself, in terms of any other thing might not. I don't think the proper word would be something like interrupt. It is more along the lines of simply mingle with the process. But here, not here, sorry, when there is simply hits the when the possibility is just to record something, it changes quite heavily. I will say. I wouldn't say the most, but quite heavily. So yeah. Anyways, I wanted to say that I will try to commit to doing that. Once again, I know I should be doing that. I should have already done that, but I haven't, because excuses, no real reason as to why I didn't even try. So yeah. Anyways, here we are. Once again, incredibly late. Also, stuff happens in that sense. So at the very least, here we are. I I said it. I'm happy that it didn't win the desire to keep procrastinating. So yeah. Anywho, I don't know. I have quite a lot of things in my mind in terms of. I wouldn't simply say worries. I will simply say stuff to keep around. Like I. It is quite wonderful to have the possibility of doing so many things that you can truly find interesting. It it does become more and more of an of a complex network of things that you can always dedicate your time to when you find out enough things that are good. And I certainly find it interesting that it also happens now, let's say, and that I can certainly enjoy that opportunity so much in so many different ways. Also, that is, I heard once this concept of from one of the developers, I think, being a proper storyteller, one of the developers of Dwarf Fortress told in one of its interviews, I think it is like one of the most interesting ones that I saw, um, that the way in which they work is by working on a lot of things that at the end of the day make up their whole project, but at the same time that are not fully related to one another, so that if they get bored of one, they can directly jump into the next one because they have found something that is interesting by itself. So that in any kind of way that they work towards making that one thing better, it is good enough. No matter how is it that they do it, it's the very same thing here, I would say. So yeah, very, very happy with that. Also, welcome, Sana. I hope you're having a nice day. And yeah, I guess in that very same sense, it happens quite naturally, something along those lines in here. The only the only kind of problem, I guess, is that you need quite a lot of patience to find out all of that in to a certain extent. And also, I hope you can enjoy your lurking. As always, there is literally no problem. Um, so yeah, um, thank you for having me on the background, I guess. Ah, but yeah, continuing. It becomes quite a wonderful thing to be capable of finding out so many things that are entertaining. The problem being that you need patience to do so, but at the same time, it is quite expected that you will need to have something like that in in your life in general, I guess. And it makes sense also that being capable of cultivating oneself towards all of that, yeah, all of that type of things that one can later on classify as interesting end up being, I will say, something so beneficial. I guess I didn't truly think about it in terms of a true necessity. Yeah, I always heard, or it is supposedly a common knowledge that it is necessary in terms of, yeah, we all know that it is quite useful to have something like that in life in general, but at the same time, I am not so sure if it is truly understood or deeply, fully comprehended in terms of, yeah, we always are working towards having something of that sort in our lives. We are always trying to have something of that degree happening in our existence, and we are trying our best to be capable of executing anything that might, in any particular way, comply to those rules. It is more like a discarded idea that we, because it is so burdensome to seeing oneself, we end up discarding. It is something more along those lines than a truly accepted one that we can say, yeah, I get how necessary it is to have something that I can describe myself as fully motivating. Or I will also say, perhaps, it is more along the lines of, in so many cases, there is also this degree of friction that exists because you also realize sometimes that you have something that the rest can't even create by themselves in any particular way. And it isn't bad in any degree, in the void of being just you, but because you have something that so many other people would benefit so much from, it feels quite hurtful to say so flagrantly that you possess this one thing, let's say, and this one attribute, even if it is something, once again, that you earned in terms of having worked towards that and whatever. In also, I, I, I certainly don't know if it is that bad or if it is indeed something of a different nature, something less problematic. I I wouldn't say it is in no way something to take into account because, after all, it does take quite a huge degree of attention to have that properly working for ourselves and whatnot. But at the same time, once again, I believe it ends up being the more, at the very least in my case, I observe that I believe it ends up being quite fantastic to cultivate more and more. I say, I I guess it is simply something along the lines of, as a natural process, you end up discovering quite a handful of things that you might also, by your own judge of character, let's say, or capacity of exercising a proper set of character based on whatever is it that your opinions are, you end up discovering that there are quite a handful of things that you want to do, or that you might believe there is a possibility for you to be good at if you were to perform those things. And in all of those realms, it always is not just merely entertaining, it is more along the lines of something nurturing to the mind, I guess, is the best type of classification for these things. And it is also quite exciting to be capable of fully putting into words, because you also realize that there is something that you as an individual can indeed accomplish, and something even more if it ends up being a sufficiently high enough, based on this idea of everybody can be useful to the rest or not. If it is aimed high enough, you can also realize that there is this possibility of what you discover, or for what you have discovered to be useful, let's say. And I guess it ends up being all of that a very long process in general, but at the same time, I wouldn't say in any way it is something not worth pursuing. I don't think it is one of those few things that is good to. Yeah, I think so. It's good to renounce. I don't think it falls under that category. There are, I guess, there are always worse things out there, or not that there are, because there are worse things. This one is less worse. Rather, what is bad is so evidently negative and impacts you so much on the with the bad kind of consequences, let's say, that something that at at a first sight might simply just have the cost of being minimally time consuming isn't really that bad. Even more, once again, if you can discover something that ends up being quite fulfilling for oneself. But I don't know. It always is complicated in terms of being, as always, capable of dealing with all of the friction that exists, not because of the idea itself, but rather because of the environment in which you find yourself discussing those things. It is always easy to silently contemplate all of that, but yeah, exercising the word in terms of saying it out loud gets a little bit more complicated. So yeah, it simply stays in that realm of, it can be nice to have, but at the same time, it isn't really that easy to observe in any kind of realm. But I don't know. I do not believe just because it is complicated, it is one of those things that you should be discarding in any way. There are so many other things that can indeed be disregarded, but not something like this. That type of friction might even be an indicative that there might be a possibility of finding later on something even better than what one can think about, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know. It it simply is something quite interesting to always try and properly talk about. After all, also, in it feels weird, but I see it like that at the very least myself. In in nowadays society, it isn't that much of a normal thing to even try to be capable of talking about this thing with others. Not these in general, all of these things that are compiled here in in topics that at the end of the day allow you to see something that identifies what is it that one can minimally find interesting to do, let's say, and not just interesting with a lot of added costs that end up impacting the rest of your life negatively, but rather something that is indeed interesting, even more because it has a lot of payouts that you might indeed want to have in your life. All of that is the good side and is the part that can get described as good to try and have. But yeah, I have I keep thinking about it and I can't still. I can't fully find one particular reason. One of the few that I can sorry name is something more along the lines of there is always this I believe excuse that ends up being empathy in this case of I can recognize the possibility of saying something that might be annoying for somebody else and saying something that might be not so once again interesting for others. And because of that, I decide to keep myself silent when indeed I have even more so much of an interest of saying something that I can say gets me to talk passionately about any kind of idea. And all of that is incredibly common in almost everybody because, let's say it like this, it happened once, and from there, the one who noticed that there wasn't any kind of repercussion because they ended up hiding what they truly wanted to talk about, because of this very same awareness, it was as a consequence an event that now everybody else also didn't have the necessity to talk about what seemed to be so interesting for them. After all, we are, yeah, I mean, it feels weird even to say it, but we are incredibly passionate beings in terms of what is it that a human being is composed of. Yet at the same time, you almost never hear somebody discuss why they are so happy about things. We always stay in the most superficial level of conversations and we always have the most inane type of discussions that don't really lead to anything, that at the end of the day don't really accomplish also anything, and always is there an ignored, consciously ignored feeling of I might have the possibility of saying something else. I might have the possibility of being capable of properly discussing with others something that I can't truly say is nice. But I instead chose to talk about the weather. Like, I get the there is this explanation of chit chat. It doesn't really take that much time to understand it. It's it is very easy to see why it is so necessary even to have something like that. After all, if you needed to test somebody, you wouldn't give them one of the most specific type of tests themselves to see if they can properly function. You will simply have data, a very normal conversation in which you just see, are they saying something that correlates with what we are talking, or are they indeed struggling to properly follow the topic that I gave them to talk about? And as simple as that, it is that you can properly, I don't know if properly, you can judge the character of somebody else's way of acting simply based on a short chit chat that you had with them. Small talk in which you didn't truly say anything amazing, but in which you were capable of judging if they were standard or not. But it never moves from there. There is never an evolution from there. It is very, very rare to see, even less with those who you don't classify as friends, something that goes outside of the boundaries of, yeah, we are here talking about how we spent the last 3 days watching X show, or binging on, say, the type of entertainment, and how much we did this one type of action. I love to hear that others are well. I am happy to realize that people are indeed living their lives in terms of, you didn't go to your house and literally turn off like a machine, let's say. I am happy with that. And I certainly hope that everybody else can be happy with that. But I don't really know if it is that necessary to constantly be validating each other's in terms of, yeah, I did this ad infinitum. The always existing conversation of, yeah, from this one thing we moved on to this other one, and from this other thing we ended up moving, or we are planning to move into this next incredibly superficial type of consumption, and all of that doesn't really change how or what we are. It doesn't really affect any kind of thing that is this self, I guess. But at the same time, still, I said it before, it is kind of understandable, I believe. You wouldn't want to discuss something with somebody who might not seem capable of understanding what you're properly talking about. After all, here I have the possibility of simply monologuing by myself. If it were to be a conversation with somebody else, I might need to be self censoring a lot more, because there might be a possibility in which they don't really get what I am saying, in which there is an improper type of communication, I guess. But I don't really know if it is that good to always have all of that, or to always act in terms of, I don't want to be, yeah, because that is also something that I thought about. I don't know if it is really true that we say so much, I don't want to hurt others. Even if you were to be a really empathic person, the biggest problem always is, I don't want to be hurt myself. I don't want to end up being damaged by what I talk about or what I don't mention. I don't even wish to try something of that sort and find out that something ended up being said to me or said to other people about me that ended up damaging everything else, because I was simply discussing something like here, for example. We are talking about passions, and I ended up saying, yeah, I love having conversations, and out of nowhere, whoever I was talking with ends up believing that when I say that, I mean, yeah, and I love to hear other people talk. I am so happy. It gets me incredibly. Um, it is unavoidable. If it gets out of context, it gets out of context. The best example always is something along the lines of I love to have conversations, not because of the value of those conversations, but rather because when I hear somebody else speaking, whoever is it that is on the other side, I enjoy um, their voice and I enjoy the passion that is behind what they are talking about because it gets me going, let's say. And, and I didn't even mean something like that. I was simply saying I enjoy having conversations because I can very much be sure that when somebody else is capable of also hearing what I try to communicate, I find the happiness that is in realizing that I can indeed keep deepening the understanding that I possess about certain things, and so much more also, I enjoy the possibility of, if it is there, a chance helping somebody else with different questions that they might have. After all, that is part of the conversation that I do say something and the other side bounces back to me with a different type of question or proposal in which we keep intertwining ideas and in which there is always a possibility for an evolution in whichever thing is it that we are the both of us as it is said, dancing in terms of just talking. And if the other side, as I said before, ends up misinterpreting what I tried to mean and end up truly believing that the first example I gave was the real one instead of the true intention, I can't do anything about that. And I might get even ridiculed and I might get even made fun of. And nobody truly wants something like that after all. It is incredibly annoying to have to deal with the consequences of out of nowhere. Not only now you have to defend one idea, but also you need to disprove another idea that has nothing to do with your real intentions, that has nothing to do with who you are and what you wish. So it ends up being true that there can be quote unquote a proper justification. I don't think it is that good, but there is a justification for that, let's say, or there is an excuse at the very least for that. But at the same time, it doesn't really make it fully understandable that you don't want to even try, that you don't even want to see if truly there is nothing to gain from properly being there and properly talking with others in terms of that, I guess. I I simply keep in terms of that, I simply keep going over and over that concept because it is always annoying to see that it, at least so far from my experience, doesn't seem to be that useful or that easy to solve at the very least. It is more like the structures that support this type of behavior in terms of never having more than an inch deep conversations can be fully used in real life or in the day-to-day life, I guess. And I mean, I guess being properly honest is also important, and being capable of truly saying what is incredibly apparent is also necessary for when you try to convey your ideas, let's say. So, I truly believe, sadly, one of the biggest problems in this whole situation is also that people don't even want to try. You believe that out of nowhere there will always be a negative consequence, or not that out of nowhere. The real reason might be something along the lines of, yeah, I I can see so much, so many times people acting negatively, people being angry, people being incredibly hurt by what I said. I have already experienced all of that. So now I will not even keep trying to make any other kind of point. I don't see any value behind what I might bring to the table, or even if there might be a value, there are also so many consequences with what I might ask that I can't even comprehend, that I might not even act just based on this one notion. And it is always understandable that one wants to be cautious in terms of that, but it doesn't really mean anything to hold ourselves back so much from those truly wonderful things. After all, having those properly, I keep calling them deep. They are not even deep. They are just real conversations with others, is what gives us so many benefits. After all, I, I, I don't want to simply hear you say, yeah, I am tired of um, the complications of my life, and say nothing else in response. Do you understand how beautiful it will be? The possibility of hearing something like that, and the possibility of properly responding back to you. It is horrible to be held back so much by those worries that literally accomplish nothing. Because at the end of the day, you still have your problem, and I also keep having my worries, which I also keep to myself, and even worse if I decide to share them with you in that sense. And I don't know. I also, what are those type of conversations in any kind of place, in any kind of area, in any kind of space? You can. There is no one place in which you have them. I I in my mind, I keep listening back to, for example, yesterday I had the possibility of properly talking with one of my my teachers, and it was incredibly amazing to hear him be capable of explaining why is it that he still teaches, and why is it that he does something that is incredibly annoying. If you have never dealt with so many people who want to try and validate the knowledge, not that they want to learn, they want to validate that they supposedly know something, because it will end up being useful for a possible career. Not that they are trying to learn because, wow, this is so deep. No, 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 no. It is an obligation to learn for those people. And you can still justify doing something like that. You can still, to yourself, be capable of arguing that it is worth trying to do for the rest of the people, even if there is a payout or whatever else. I certainly wouldn't even try to be a teacher if it were for something like that. And to hear somebody like him say to me, in the case of this example, that he does something like that because at the end of the day, there isn't that many people to begin with that are willing to do that, and also he already has more than enough experience that he is capable of sharing with others. And if they were to use that, they will see that there is some kind of benefit behind doing so. All of that can happen in any kind of place. It doesn't need to be just in a very professional type of environment. Anywhere, any kind of place, there is the possibility to have a good conversation, just to encapsulate that inside of, yeah, it needs to happen inside of these boundaries. It needs to be of this sort. It needs to be in with only with this kind of people. What? You don't even know how much of an incredibly huge knowledge somebody can hold inside of themselves, how much they can show that they possess very valuable insights about the world itself. The the average person isn't average because they don't think. What kind of meaningless explanation would that be for what is average? It simply is saying it's something along the lines of I am happy, I am content with knowing that I can hold any kind of conversation with whoever might come on the other side and whoever might present themselves in the other end. And I don't even wish to ignore the possibility that it might happen because I know that there is something to win, you know? Yeah, it is, sorry, 70, it is 70, my beloved. But yeah, I still understand the point. And don't worry, it is just like reading between the lines, let's say. But yeah, I mean, all of those things is what makes it so valuable, and all of those things is what makes it incredibly, I believe, so necessary to have. After all, it always is not just finding out that somebody else might be capable of doing that and reprimanding them onto acting that way. It is always the I can do that. I can work towards that myself, and that is what's meaningful. That is what's good. That the rest is not so easy to change if one doesn't even try to change that after all. But I don't know. I still think it ends up being quite necessary from time to time to try and even mention that because there is a point in which it seems weird to even point out the necessity of those ideas, let's say. And also, yeah, I added that because it is funny to see how incredibly hard it ends up being the process of reading chat to a certain point, but it still can be readable to some degree. Um, but it doesn't really change the fact that the message is still there. The symbols that are behind whatever one says doesn't really affect what can be truly said, In this case, I mean, we are simply talking about conversations. It seems kind of coincidental even that I don't I I don't see how something like this can make the message less comprehensible in any way. The desire to simply get what somebody else is saying is what makes it understandable. The rest isn't even that much important. Once you can fully establish, I guess, to yourself that you are truly interested in what might be said by the other side. That is quite wonderful, I guess. And I don't know. I wouldn't point out that. I don't believe there might be a lack of interest. I Yeah, it is kind of bad to think about it that way, I guess. Yeah, it is kind of disheartening to think about it that way. I wouldn't even suggest something like that. But yeah, um, I guess to move on a little bit, I kind of understand. After all, there are always things. It is in that very same realm. There are always things that one can learn about. You are learning about personalities. Everybody can be doing whatever they wish to do in terms of exploring knowledge. The world itself is built upon knowledge. We don't live anymore in an era in which everything needs to be discovered, we have so many things already explained, and we have already so many ideas properly said that you can give out of that meaning, and you can allow all of those things to be comprehensive, and you can make it a properly, yeah, I guess, appropriate word, just by trying to make it that way. I mean, yeah, let's say it like this, I guess. Even if the problem were to be interest, even if it were to be said that you might find some degree of friction because you don't even want to have interest on the other side on what they might be trying to say, even if that were to be real, you still have the possibility of changing what is being talked about. You can still modify what is the main idea. That is the most fundamental side of a conversation, that both sides are willing to decide themselves on what is being the conversation, that both sides are exploring what they both wish to talk about or not. And if they do so, that they might find out something that they can coincide on, that they can explore in terms of, once again, they can see what they both hold knowledge on, and from there explore the rest of the deeper ideas that they might have on those things, let's say. But to reach something like that, you need you just need to try, let's say, or you firstly need to be capable of recognizing that you need to try. It won't happen out of nowhere that, oh yeah, now everybody will recognize that. In this case, the very best example is, as an individual, I might wish to have more meaningful conversations with others. It won't happen that out of nowhere everybody will get that idea. There is no way in which conversations like that can be made without any other explanation, or that such a concept can be shared with just an image. Let's say we haven't so far created that idea. We haven't been capable of expressing something like that to the rest. We simply have all of those things in order to try and suffice the desire to, yeah, to basically express what is oneself. But the act of expressing needs to be accompanied, or can only be executed, if you are willing to try and express yourself, let's say. And it does happen in this case. I see it, that even in the case of, oh yeah, I want to have better conversations, more meaningful, you can only have them, you can only accomplish something like that if you can recognize, firstly, on yourself the interest on that, and later on the capacity of expressing that also to others. Nobody will out of nowhere change their behavior towards you just because you had an internal idea that you never expressed. Nothing changes like that in terms of interactions that you have with others. We don't possess the capacity of reading minds so far. So it ends up being quite impossible to do something of that degree. Even if you were to try your best to accomplish that, let's say, it is still impossible to attain that realm, I guess. But it doesn't mean that you don't have also the possibility of properly saying what you want. It, I always, yeah, I guess the word hate is quite disregarded in terms of properly understanding how necessary it is sometimes to properly possess hate towards some things and how beneficial it can be for you if you can see how negative is something to the point to which you can say that you will always keep avoiding that same thing. In this case, how much I hate the idea of I don't need to communicate to others. What? There is nothing to gain if you don't talk with others, and there is no way in which anything can properly move towards anywhere if you are not even trying to do the minimal effort of using words. I I don't know. I don't find it as that amazing thing. I guess when somebody decides to disregard everything else just because, oh yeah, I that thing that is to talk, I am not going to do that. I am not going to talk. It is, as long as you have the capacity to do it, it might as well be the most easy thing to do, I guess. Also, um, welcome, San and Crespian. I hope both of you are having a nice day. Yeah, basically that. Welcome. And now that I also have taken a pause, let me drink some water. Let me drink some water. Thank you. But nice. Just as I finish drinking my water. Yeah, I guess I'm very happy to still be capable of having you around. It is always something that is even impossible to fully comprehend how beautiful it is to possess this support of somebody else. And it is quite appreciated that you're capable of doing that not only to me or for me, but also to so many people. I think that's something not just important to notice. There are a lot of things that are important to notice in life, let's say, but it is by itself one of the most valuable things. So, truly thank you, Crespian. And I hope if it is something that you can truly find interesting, you can also keep doing that. Thank you. There, there it is. But yeah, anyways, anyways, continuing. I guess it's simply something along those lines. It is just some days you can you can see as it happens like today that there are problems that you possess the capacity of solving, but even understanding the proper reasons as to why they are there is a better way to work on them rather than to just get as deep as you can on the problem itself and the actions that you thought were the best. Sometimes, yeah, it is quite useful to, as I said before, if you if you want to accomplish a better type of or to change a conversation, you need to simply have that type of discussion with somebody else in which you can express what you feel and obtain the rewards for said things. But the normal thing is also that if you can't even realize why said events happen, you won't even have proper access to a good enough response. In this case, it isn't like discussions or something that nobody wants to have. There are that is I feel like one of the worst things even of all of that there are so many people sometimes that will give everything that they have in just to have one of those proper conversations with somebody else, because the complete degree to which you can immerse yourself in a profound enough talk with the other one that offers you their ear and that can also respond is something so amazing to have and so nurturing to the soul that it is quite beautiful to practice properly and quite healing to have, let's say, because it is once again in the discussion of all those things that one thinks about but doesn't express to others that we find the proper understanding and proper connections. You don't simply connect with somebody because you just share common interest of the most superficial degree. You don't make proper friendships like that. Those who you call your closest are not those who you have talked with the less or the least. They don't, it doesn't work like that. And even if you try to lie to yourself to say, oh yeah, I love this one person so much because they literally don't talk to me. What? What? It, it, it doesn't work that way. And it doesn't change anything, no matter how much you try to believe in that. But the point itself was, once again, what I said or what I was trying to say of because you can discover so many people are incredibly willing to have that type of conversation with others. It is that you can realize how useful it is to try and instigate a little bit more out of that. It is even I will say it is kind of sadder to see that just as I say that the only way in which you can see instigation is as in something negative, and that might be certainly a problem of the language in which we find ourselves in, that the limitations of the views that we have on those things is that nowadays you can't even say some words because the negative connotations are so heavy that even if the context itself might allow you to express something properly with that one expression, it isn't even worth trying because the mental image that comes to mind is something bad. And so bad it is even that it outweighs the whole message. But it doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't need to work that way. And there are so few real words that truly have that degree of connotations. And you can still, even if there were to be a million of those words in the language, you can still sort out all of those traps, let's say, and have with the most basic type of words in your vocabulary a good enough talk with somebody else. And it can be indeed deep enough. It doesn't require the most surprising and advanced lexicon that nobody has ever seen before. It, it has nothing to do with that. It doesn't require, you don't need to be a walking dictionary to be capable then and only then of properly talking with somebody else and properly having all of these that we are talking about, something that feels like a useful conversation. I don't know. I guess it always is kind of worrisome to a certain extent because it feels like the more you can point out proper reasons as to why it is necessary, the more you realize how much of a negligence we are having on something that can truly be beneficial. And it feels horrible even more to point that out because at the end of the day, we are still individuals. We can't change the whole world. You can believe that you might be capable of accomplishing something, but you don't truly know how much of an impact it will have on everything that happens. And it doesn't really mean that there won't be benefit, any kind of benefit, sorry, to that thing which you try. I guess the most important thing even is the outweight that it ends up having when you realize, when you have the possibility once again of hearing somebody talk properly with you, hearing those ideas that had been cultivated for so long, and being capable of properly in discussing whatever is it that worries somebody, or whatever is it that somebody wanted to question about any kind of matter, is it then that you can realize properly how good it all was and how worth it was to even try, even if it happens just with one singular person, or even if it is just quote unquote your fifth time experiencing something like that, it still is quite a magnificent experience that justifies all of the effort itself. It doesn't in any kind of way negate the possibility of, and you know what? It was good and it was useful. What? It, it never works in the way of, yeah, I tried to have this thing. And just because I tried, I learned that it was meaningless. It doesn't work like that. But I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes things like that at the very least are very hard to properly mention in any kind of way. Sadly, so I guess the I guess I also need to mention the other side of what I decided to willingly ignore because I mentioned that before. And it certainly is there. It isn't like it never happened. That you can propose something like that and you end up finding out that nobody ends up having real interest. That we are disinterested by those things. That people has truly lost the capacity of finding any kind of meaning behind those conversations. And that even if you try, you will learn that out of nowhere, people not only have what I mentioned before, a degree of friction and some degree of troubles because there might be a possibility in which something that they said get misinterpreted, or the possibility that what you chose to talk about wasn't truly a topic that they like. No, 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 no. A complete lack of interest because there might be nothing to truly gain by talking with anybody out any kind of thing in their eyes. There are still a lot of people like that. And it, there is no other way to say it that it happens and that it is a reality of nowadays world. That at the very least there is no this discourse against seeing things that way. There is no proper reason or proper idea as to why something like that is so hurtful. It's, I certainly, sadly, it might be even the opposite of there is so much despair, there is so much desire sometimes, I guess, of seeing things in a negative light that it ends up being accepted that why will you even try to have any kind of deep conversation with somebody else? After all, you're not somebody who is properly taught to have those type of conversations. You might as well not even know what you're saying. You might negatively influence somebody else because what you decided to bring up was something that the other side wasn't even ready to discuss, and now you have completely negatively affected them by what you chose to bring to their minds. You don't know how much of a damage you can make on somebody else just because you made one, in your eyes, silly question. You're an incredibly damaging entity. What? What? Why is it so accepted out of nowhere? And why it is that despair that wins so much? It is, and it isn't that like there is no explanation even. You live any kind of time in this world and you instantly find out. You instantly find out about that. Once you lose, the amount of hatred also that you feel is such an extent so big that you even wish for others to lose. And the despair that gets reciprocated is so big that at some point it ends up being the norm. After all, you already tried to have any kind of conversation with somebody, and what you ended up getting is rejected because, after all, they also got rejected before you. And now you get rejected, and now what you do is reject the next one that might offer you something like this because, after all, who the fuck knows what you truly want to talk about? Who are they to try and bring you to any kind of point to which you will have to explain yourself and you will have to talk with your heart in your hand, as they will say, or in your sleeve, and properly reveal those thoughts that you had been harboring for so much? Why would there be any kind of need for all of that? And the more all of that happens, the more all of that will keep unavoidably happening. But it doesn't still mean that it is okay to accept that, and it is okay even less to surrender against all of that negativity. It is, once again, we have so many chances of getting to know things better that without those type of conversations, everything else ends up being quite meaningless. What ends up being the benefit of anything that you do if it is only going to be for yourself? And what is going to be the real value of what you gained if you can't even be capable of showing others, not in a sense of, oh yeah, I will showcase and I will indulge in the amount of congratulations that I will get from the rest. No, that is stupid. I am not talking about that. And it should be more than obvious what I am trying to say here. A proper discussion in which you can signify to others why something is important. Like everything that has been happening in the last 40 minutes of me talking. Everything along those lines, not something else, not something more banal and more self-indulgent. That kind of talk and that kind of conversation can be had and can be nice to search and can be obviously beneficial for everybody to try and cultivate with the rest. But it just needs to happen. It just needs to be dealt with, let's say. There won't be any change if oneself can't acknowledge the necessity to change that, let's say. Because after all, there might be somebody in the future who changes that. And there might be also somebody in the future who notices how meaningless that is. So there might also be no change. Or, in the best scenario possible, there might be no one who tries to change that. Because the most important one who can change that is yourself. And until we can realize the responsibility that everybody has in their hands, in our hands, there will be no difference made here. Because it is always the responsibility for somebody else, as I said before. Oh yeah, I can blame society out of nowhere. That the problem is that we are all so accustomed to not having this type of conversations that even if I try, I will get rejected. And it doesn't mean that you will get killed for having tried. It doesn't mean that you will get silenced for the rest of your life for having tried. It means just that you need to keep trying until you find a way in which it works out. That is the very basis of any kind of effort that you have and any kind of this desire or aspiration that you find out in your life. It is like that in every kind of area. This is no different. But I don't know. It isn't at the very least. It isn't that bad. The final note. It wasn't that bad. But it is quite desperate to think about it. It is, yeah, I guess the reality is to a certain degree quite annoying even to think about all of those things because at the end of the day, if there is a possibility to deal with something but everybody else but oneself needs to change, then there might have been no change at all. Everything is, in that sense, quite useless to discuss if, oh yeah, and you know, everybody needs to change. I don't need to. I don't need to also take the first step. The rest are who are wrong. I am out of nowhere a perfect being who has accomplished everything that they wanted in life except this one thing because every other arrangement of the destiny has made it so that I can change that. I can't in any particular way change that. And I will give up and I will sit in my chair angrily, looking at the world and pointing at it, saying that they are the ones to blame. I have no responsibility. It doesn't work like that, I guess. It doesn't to any degree work like that. But yeah. I guess that is just another thing that I was thinking about. I will drink some water. That is what I can tell you right now. Thank you. Also, it is one of the calmest days of my dogs in such a long time. It is weird to see them not even barking. Like, I think they didn't bark even once today. And it is quite late. Or, I mean, not late. It is the peak time for them to come here and start barking like crazy. Quite weird to see that they never did so. I think so. Well, if they did so, I probably didn't notice if I was in the middle of angrily saying one word after the other. Uh, but yeah, I hope they didn't bark. And yeah, I am pretty sure they didn't. But anyways, simply wanted to say that it was quite amazing to see. Yeah. Anyways, I guess that conversations, what a wonderful thing to have. And I mean, that is also the other side of what I was trying to say, what I was trying to to mention to any degree. I got the pleasure of properly having one with somebody who I who I enjoyed, who I liked, and as I said before, not oh wow, I need to be vague. I was with my teacher talking, and it is quite wonderful to get the pleasure of hearing those things. But once again, the problem is out of nowhere, it is it ends up being seen as something weird, even to propose having those conversations more with the rest. It is quite shameful to live in this present moment and see all of that happening. Like, let's say like this, we don't even understand how the mind fully works, how useless it ends up being to believe that you needed to limit yourself to have that type of conversation with only a certain type of people in a very constrained type of situation and place and environment and whatever kind of excuse that you want to have in order to not make it so normal. How good it could be, how beautiful it would be to be capable of having that on the on a daily basis, on the day-to-day life with whoever it happens to cross your way. It is at the end of the day that's the most important part of that. That it is quite wonderful to hear what others have to say because you can realize that there is a real passion behind of what they are doing, and in that you can also understand a little bit better what might make you be passionate about any kind of thing. It is even disheartening, I guess, to give up on the possibility of having something like that just because, and even worse, just because you had a one problem. It is incredibly meaningless to live in that way and to let so much despair affect you when you can deal with that, not that you need to not act against that. It is, I see it at the very least as so utterly useless to believe in things that way. But I don't know. Yeah, I simply felt like saying all of those things. I don't know. As always, I will probably forget about what I said in the next week or so. So hold me accountable, but I won't even be capable of telling you even a quarter of what I said here today. Thank you. Basically, thank you. But act more on what you think. No, don't simply think so much. It is it is still nothing to just live in the world of your imagination. It is quite limited to just do that, I guess. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess that's that. I don't have really anything else to add. At least for now. I mean, I guess I hope I touched every single thing that I wanted. So yeah, I have been basically taking as much time as I could to to not say that yeah that's everything for today. I will be leaving basically. I I will be removing myself from this place right now. I still will say so. Yeah, um, I guess can we please write somebody? Thank you. Uh, but anyways, meanwhile, thanks as always for everything. And yeah, I hope the most important thing, what is really important, not what I say, what you can make after what I say, what you can get out of whatever it is that I mention. That's the meaningful part of that. I mean that's also quite a wonderful thing that sometimes, even if you believe that you said something deep, it if it doesn't get properly understood by the other side, it will still be nothing. And sometimes, even in the most normal of the things, you find something quite wonderful and quite surprising from those who offer you simple words. So look out for that. Have a hope. And also, I am kind of sorry because I am ending, but welcome, Mike. I hope you're doing well, Manito. I hope you're well. Wait, no. Before raiding even, because this guy, this is important. We're talking about words. We're talking about also an image has more meaning than 1,000 words or something like that. I remember hearing that expression somewhere once. I think. Uh, Here, somebody who makes a lot of images in the form of what we classify as art. Mikey, please watch him, artist, Chua, good friend of the house, let's say. Yeah, shut up, Mikey. I love you, brother, but basically that. Him, please follow him. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say before leaving. Now for real, I don't have anything else to say so far. So now let me read. I do have somebody. I did find someone. Um, what? It is so hard sometimes to write slash. The biggest problem is because I am not looking at the. I can't look at the keyboard. I have it covered, so I don't know the keys. Anyways, right there it is. Anyways, people, as I was trying to say, thanks for everything. It has been quite wonderful. Thanks for everything. I hope anything valuable can be learned from this. And basically that. Have a nice one. Have a nice day. Have a nice life. Be happy. Be capable of doing what you wish. Be capable of acting on what you know. Be. And don't stop being, let's say. So yeah, I will take my break. Also take yours. Now we are going even into Rati, who I wrote four. I wrote four. Aha! I wrote four instead of. Wait. There it is. No, for real. We are writing Rati. I wrote four instead of five. Thank you. Sorry. Uh, anyways, as I was saying, have a nice one. We're reading Rati. Who is. What is he doing? I think he has no category, so I can't even tell you. Let me watch. Uh, 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 playing a game. Okay, playing something, I guess. So yeah. Anyways, people, goodbye. Goodbye. Give me out of here. What the fuck?